Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight on a Friday evening for the first session organized by us. So it's going to be a very short session, right? Just a few slides to walk you through what's going to happen with the business matching from now until the end of March, essentially. Right. As is the first session by myself, I'd like to introduce myself briefly and then walk you through, right, a few more slides. All right, so about myself, I've spent the past 17 years in Asia, in Japan and Singapore, and most of that time, a bit more than that actually, in tech, right, across France, Japan, and Singapore. I'm the co-founder at Created Impact, which is essentially organizing acceleration programs for impact startups. And I'm also the founder of Created Venture Builder, which is a startup studio venture builder. Essentially, we help build tech startups. So the two hand in hand, the Accelerator and Venture Builder, have supported a few hundred startups over the past 10 years. Before that, I was CTO, so my background is in tech. I was CTO 4 times in different sectors across fintech, edtech, and e-commerce. And on the side, I'm also an angel investor, mentor, and coach for different programs. So I also could share a bit of information about the perspective of angel investors, for example. All right. So first, I'd like to walk you through the timeline of what's going to happen from now on until the end of March, right? So we are here on the timeline, right, around mid-January. And essentially what we are doing right now on our side internally is we are identifying 220 investors, right, to help you later on reach out to them, right? So for now, this is on our side. On yours, right? So January 23rd to February 7th, right? So if you remember the session you had just 2 days ago with IntLabs, they mentioned that you're going to have one-on-one mentorship support on helping you to improve your pitch decks, right? So you will have about 2 weeks to work on that. At the end of that, you will be invited to submit your updated pitch decks, right? So around February 8th, by the latest. And after that, February 10 to 14, we will review your pitch decks and validate them for the pitching event. If it needs a little bit more work, we may go back to you and invite you to do some touch-ups. All right, so we may have like a live deck review. We may have like some follow-up support for the ventures that need a little bit more of extra time. After that is done, we reach mid-February to up until the end of March, you will be invited to reach out to the investors listed, right? So we identify a bit more than 200 investors over here. We will bring them into a platform. I'm going to explain that in a few slides. And you will then reach out to them from mid-February, right? So just before the pitching event up until the end of March. And as you know, February 18, we do the pitching rehearsal in Jakarta and the big pitching event with business matchmaking on February 19th. Just as a quick note, there may be minor changes, but that's essentially the crux of what will happen. Please interrupt me anytime if you have any questions, thoughts, feedback. Write them in the chat. I'm monitoring the chat in real time, right? So if there's anything, feel free to ask. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the investors platform, right? So once again, we're contacting 220 investors, trying to list them all onto the platform. And essentially that will look like this, right? So this is what we did in the past for another program. Instead of investors here, we listed startups, right? But it will look a bit like that, right? Essentially 1 car per investor, and you will be able to see a lot of key information about them. Right? Most importantly, when you reach out to investors, you need to really understand their thesis, right? You need to understand what do they invest on? What geography do they invest on? What sector or themes do they invest on? What stage do they invest on, right? Before contacting them, right? Do not reach out to investors who are not investing in, the sector you're in, the geography you're in, et cetera, et cetera. So this platform that we are still building at that time, and we will send you the link soon, will show all the investors and all the key information about them that will be mapped out, right? For you to then look at it and pick, right? Identify the investors that match your thesis, and then for you to reach out to them. Very simply. Okay, so you'll hear from us regarding this platform very soon. Okay, then next steps. All right, so the first task I've got for you is to fill in the the investment survey. So Andrew, if you can put the link in the chat, perfect, thank you. All right, so you can click on the link over here, and essentially that shows you right the survey over here, okay, that you will be asked to fill in. All right, so the name of your company, your email contact, how much revenue projections, etc., etc. There are quite a few questions, about 20, 30, right? Hopefully you can answer them all. Do your best to answer them as fully as possible. It will help us a lot in us providing you support. If you are not sure how to answer them, feel free to ask in Discord. Else, hopefully, we can already answer everything. If really there's some information that you really can't fill in, no problem, leave it empty. Okay. But if you're just not sure, send us a message in Discord and we will assist. All right. So deadline for the survey, so early next week, right? That'd be great. All right. Going back to my next steps slide, and it's actually the last of for today, right? So it's a very, very short session, right? So first task to fill in the investment survey, right? So this will be used to adapt our matchmaking strategy and support. Yeah,
Hello, sir.
I see it. Go ahead.
Yes. Uh, I just look at your the link that you just shared us a moment, and we are come from academic institution, and how can we complete those those information such as revenues, annual revenues, and the income, and it is very very difficult for us. So can you recommend us something?
Okay, so if some questions really do not suit you, are not fit for your business, you can, remove them, right? So EBITDA, etc. Income, you should still be able to mention that because you probably still generate
Okay.
revenues. But indeed, some are not necessarily applicable to you. If so, maybe just mention it briefly, right? Not
Yeah,
applicable
yeah. Thank you.
because,
Thank you
right?
so much.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, thank you. All right. And so the second task I've got for you is for you to think about your fundraising strategy. Right? So we're going to give you a link or so to submit it in a few days. Is there a deadline for this form? Early next week, let's say next Wednesday. All right, next Wednesday for the survey. Yeah. But if we are not to market yet, well, in the sense, so is it that you will be before February 19th and you're not yet now and you need a few more days? Or is it that, you need a months or years to be ready, Nick? Or do you mean that you did not market yet? You did not generate revenues yet? Is that your question, Nick? Got it. Okay. Then just put 0. If your revenues are 0, just put 0. Yeah. My pleasure. Yeah. All right. So your fundraising strategy. So we're going to send you the link later on to answer these questions, but I still invite you to look at the slide right now. Maybe even take a screenshot about it, take a screenshot of the screen. And we'd like you to think about all these elements, right? Think about your ask. So how much do you want to raise, right? What's the amount? What's the maybe valuation you want to negotiate with the investors? How are we going to use the funds? What's going to be the runway for you using these funds? What milestones do you intend to reach with the funds that you will raise? Right? Again, some of these questions will not be suitable to your type of business. If so, like just ignore these ones. If maybe you're looking for grants, you can still wonder, like what is the amount of grants that you require and how will you use it, etc. You can then start working on your outreach messages to investors, right? So typically you can have different messages. The first, a follow-up, maybe a second follow-up message, right? So what are they going to be? For these outreach messages, I strongly recommend to have a standardized template, but then to adapt it to each investor you reach out to, right? You don't need to adapt it a lot, just showing that you did a little bit of homework to understand who they are. And if you can demonstrate very quickly why you think you match their thesis, then that's fantastic. Then they receive your message and okay, they understood who we are, they understood what we're looking for. Other tip for the outreach message, I strongly recommend a very short, straight to the point message. Don't give everything, right? Don't give straight away, it's good if you give your pitch deck and if you have like just one quick paragraph on why do you think that, you match their thesis? Hey, we looked at what you do, what you invest on, and it sounds like we would be a good fit because we are also in the sector and we are at this stage and we're on this geography. And the second paragraph can be a little bit about you, right? Maybe about your value proposition or the fact that you're raising X and the link to your pitch deck optionally. Okay, so very short, straight to the point. The goal is to ask, to wait for a reply from them before getting and then once they reply, you can really send them the complete answers to the message, right? Second, so the follow-up message is going to be like, if they do not answer, what should you send them, right? Same, very short message, not very long, right? The longer they are, quite often, the less you're going to get, the less likely it is that you're going to be receiving a reply from them. Okay. And number three, a CRM that you will use. So customer relationship management system, my CRMs are going to be extremely valuable for any founder to do their fundraising campaign. Okay, fundraising is a lot of work, right? I think you discussed a lot about it on Wednesday, so I don't think I'm giving you new information, but essentially it takes a lot of time. You need to be really well organized, right? It's a skill to hone. It's really complex, it takes a lot of time. It can distract founders for a while, right? But it's really important to do that in a really well-structured, organized way. Right. So I strongly recommend to have a mini system for your CRM where you have all your investors. Treat it like a sales process, right? And the more organized you are with a CRM, with template messages, etc., the better it's going to be. So in terms of the CRM, I recommend using Airtable, which is like Google Spreadsheets on steroids. Right? It's relational databases essentially on a very simple Google Spreadsheet kind of format. You can also use Notion that you now know, right? Which has been used also to use your. Okay, I see some people using Google Sheets. Google Sheets are very good as well, right? Absolutely, it's already really useful, and you don't need a really complex system over here, right? Or you can use HubSpot, which is one of the best CRMs out there, right? So for those who are particularly familiar with HubSpot already, it can be very useful. Okay, I see we have a question as well. Do you have a fundraising strategy template that you recommend? Okay, so on purpose, I didn't really want to give you an outreach message because that's what we see is that most startups are going to just follow that exact message. What I propose is that it starts from you so that it's also like really unique to you, right? Because the investors are going to get a lot of messages from each of you, right? Well, we have about 60 plus ventures. We have a bit more than 200 investors. Each of you will reach out to many investors, right? So we don't want them to receive the exact same template. So, however, don't worry. You will be invited to share your outreach message in an assignment submission link very soon, right? We will send you the link in a few days. we will review it and we will give you some feedback if needed. Okay. Right.
Sorry, may I have a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed the first few minutes of the session, so I was not very clear. The presentation and the pitching that we are talking about is for the main ABIC event, or is for separate like business matching event, or the two events are the same?
Okay, good question. Let me just go back quickly. So essentially, here we're talking. My apologies. I got. Yes, it's preparing you for you to reach out to investors from mid-February to end of March, right? And the pitching event will be part of that, and hopefully you will be able to see face to face, right, some of the investors that you've seen. But long story short, we are identifying 220 investors right now. You will see them on the platform that will look like that. You will have like all the explanations, the key information about each of these investors, and they will be you will be able to filter them, sort them out depending on their thesis. You identify them, and then you reach out to them, right? So that was essentially to help you to plan your fundraising strategy, right? By thinking about your ask, the outreach message, the CRM you're going to use, etc., for this fundraising campaign that's going to go from mid-February to late March. And that you can continue way after the program as well. And by the way, this fundraising strategy, that kind of campaign that you organize is really typical. So in the future as well, you will have to do that, right? Even if you're looking for grants, right, you still need, CRM, investors FAQ, outreach message, etc. The amount that you're going to ask for, etc. Does that answer your question?
So by the end of March, we will have another like formal final investor event, or we just like follow up with the investors separately?
No, there is one pitching event, which is on February 19th, and there's one period of time for you to reach out to investors through that platform that will go from mid-February to end of March.
Okay, so we will just reach out and follow up with investor directly by
Correct.
ourselves, and we don't have any
Yes.
formal event by the end of March, right?
The formal event is on February 19th.
Okay, that's the only event we have. I see.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of the questions I asked earlier to the organizer is corporate partners or customer are also very important to us besides investor. So any among those like 220 partners, identify any of them are like more from corporate partners rather than investors, or are they only investors?
Correct. Some would be corporate partners. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. My pleasure. Okay, and I see, so I was told that it's great to schedule all investor meetings within a period of a few weeks to build FOMO. Any tips on how to go about this? Yes, it's true, right? So yeah, the more, FOMO and the more momentum you have, the better. At the same time, fundraising always takes a lot of time, right? So it's good to be well prepared, right? Particularly, with this, right? Having a strong pitch deck, having your data room ready, having the key documents that they're going to ask for ready, right? Like maybe your financial forecasts or any additional data that they may ask for, and having thought about all of this, right? Right. So let me finish, right? The last 2 points are investors FAQ. So this is the questions that investors are going to ask you. Okay. We could have a quick, list of questions that they typically ask. Else, honestly, you could ask ChatGPT. They can also give you, or you can think about, right? Typically, it's going to be, what's your value proposition? Well, we're going to give you a template later on. And, each slide essentially needs to have, needs to answer, right? So they need to understand, right? The typical list of slides are going to be, what's your problem? What's your solution? What's your market? What's your team, et cetera, et cetera. And for each slide, there are going to be like a few typical questions, right? The solution, right, needs to address really well the problem. The problem needs to be really big, et cetera, right? So that helps you to think about the questions that investors are going to have. If you want, you'd like to have a few more questions, again, like feel free to send us in Discord and we can put something together. Okay. And the last point is your questions to investors, right? It's always good also to think about at the end of the call, what could you ask them, right? So be prepared. What questions are they going to ask you and what questions should you ask them? Never end up a call with an investor having no question for them. You know, it's a bit like when you look for a job and, you know, you do a job interview, you don't have any question for the company. It looks like you're not that interested, right? Think about a few questions that you can ask anyone, whatever the case, and about a few questions that are particularly specific to them. Okay, so to go back to Resbin's question, if you are really well prepared, then, you know, I spend a few weeks, maybe if needed, on your side, right over here, right, we have a few more weeks until mid-February, and then you can reach out to all of them at the same time, right? So when we give you the access to the platform over here, you will be invited to select all the investors or corporate partners that seem to be matching you. We're going to review very quickly that list, and then you can blast. Right? You can send all the outreach messages to all of them at the same time, right? So that's going to be the best way for you to create that. Just to finish, you know, the 1 to 2 weeks is a bit of a target. It's very common for it to take a lot more time, and it's totally fine for it to take a lot more time, right? A big fundraising campaign can take 6 months from the moment you start to the moment you get the money into the bank account. It's very common, right? So if you manage to do it over a few weeks, fantastic. I think it's more of a guideline for you to start reaching out to all of them. Then it takes you weeks to organize all the calls, etc., right? And it takes months to go through the due diligence on the investor side, right? Back and forth, the questions on their side, etc., etc. Okay. Yeah, did I answer the question, Resbin? Okay. I think the 1 2 weeks was so that there's negotiating. Yeah. So great, right? So it's a bit like when you look for a job, right? Essentially, you know, the more you have options on the table at the same time, the better it is, right? So you know, you get 2 offers from, well, 3 offers from different investors at the same time. You have more negotiation power, indeed. Right? And if you spread it out too much and you only reach out to one investor at a time, the chances that you're going to get offers that overlap in time is just going to be much lesser, right? So yeah, it's better to reach out to all of them at the same time to do one big campaign. Okay, quick note, quick addendum to that. If it is your very first fundraising campaign, it can also be good to have maybe like one mini campaign just to learn a little bit, right? So for example, you start reaching out to not your ideal first priority investors, but your second tier, right? Second priority investors. And you talk a little bit with them, you see the questions they have, and you basically build up a lot of experience, right, in a few weeks. That can be also a really good strategy. And then that really teaches you, that helps you being way more prepared, and that gives you a lot of experience in a short amount of time. And then you can reach out to your top priority investors, right? This is something that you often do in sales as well. Again, maybe job hunting, right? You can also do that, right? If it's the very first time you do job hunting, right? It's always very useful as well. Okay. So again, the 1 to 2 weeks is a guideline. Indeed, it gives you more negotiation power if you're ready. If you're not, right? And anyway, it is going to spread out over a long period of time, just because investors are a bit, are going to take time to answer, or are going to need a lot of calls, and of course are going to need to do due diligence, which is going to spread out over a long period of time. Okay. All right, and I see we have a hand raised. VJ, yeah.
Hi, good morning. Just a question on the 220 investors. Have they been pre-briefed that they are going into a platform, or they are, in a way, indirectly being assigned, or it's really just research and it's a cold call pretty much?
It's the first. Yeah, so
Okay.
we are reaching out to them. A lot of them are people
Preliminary.
that we know. Yeah, organization that we know. So yeah.
Thank you for that. Here. Cheers.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right. Okay, great questions, by the way. I really like it, right? The goal also is for all these calls to be interactive. So yeah, that's really, really great. Well, that's essentially all we have for today. So I think about these 5, right? I hope you took a screenshot of that. If not, don't worry. We will send you later on the link again for you to submit all of these 5 points. And right, you can then submit your fundraising strategy. Think about it. Take your time to think about it, right? We have quite a few weeks in front of us. And then, right, the link will be shared in Discord. And the link to the investment survey is already shared in the chat. We will also share it again in Discord. That's it. We can stop here. We can spend just a little bit more time if you have any question. I propose to give you 1 more minute if anyone has anything. Okay, should we share the grant funding in the pitch deck? So how much you've raised in terms of grant, how much you got in terms of grants, is that correct? Yes. Then yeah, absolutely, you can. So it's always interesting to show in a pitch deck, indeed, so your past achievements. And one of the key achievements, so I would say like achievements are kind of prioritized, right? The best achievement you may show to an investor is typically going to be how much revenues you've gotten and show that the revenue trajectory is going up, right? So you're getting more efficient at generating revenue. That's the best achievement you may show. Second best is then going to be like users, traction through user acquisition. Same, ideally, you show that, right? Maybe even if they're not paying, the number of users or customers or companies is growing. Another type of achievement, right, accomplishment that you can share is how much you've raised, right? So either from grants or and lower right at the bottom, then if you don't have any of that, don't have traction, you can't really show product market fit, but at least you created a product, right? Then show that. Maybe you don't have any customers yet, but you already have like LOIs, right? Letters of intent, or MOUs, memorandum of understanding, right? Signed with companies, that say that they're interested in becoming your partners or your customers. So basically there's a priority. Just pick the top 3. And if, the amount of funds that you raise is one of the 3, then mention that. Okay. I hope I was clear. But that's a very good question. Essentially prioritize. Okay, I see quite a few more. Did you already share the website? No, not yet. I will send it soon. Next week, probably mid next week and next week, I think. Yeah. Will they be present? Some of them will be present during the matchmaking event on February 19th. Not all of them, not all 220, but yeah, many of them will be there, yes. How can we make investors to invest with a university? Well, it really depends on your case. It's a bit too generic for me to answer. Is that a non-profit or is that a for-profit? Okay, meanwhile, I will go to the next question. How to structure
I think that the profit.
For-profit? Okay.
Yeah.
So
because
yeah,
we are university, so for how can we convince the investor to invest with us? Yes.
Yeah. So maybe we can. So I think that's a great question for mentorship, but I can give you like very, very quick thoughts right now. So one, we can split between traditional investors and impact investors. So a big question you need to ask yourself is, what kind of investor is going to suit you? Traditional investors need to get a financial return. Quick note, I don't know if you had that discussion on Wednesday, but traditional investors who are financial return only, right? They do not expect an impact return, they only expect a financial return. They need to have, in short, they manage the money of investors into their own funds, right? So VCs, they do not invest their own money, right? They invest the money from their own investors, right? So they are fund managers. And what they need to show to their investors is that they can reach a certain percentage per year of return. It's typically, their goal is essentially to beat the S&P 500 most of the time, right? If it was, right, if you just invest on the stock market, you're going to get roughly 7-10% of return per year. You need to beat that. A fund manager needs to do more than that. Usually they need to do like 15-20%, sometimes up to 30%, though it's very, very high. So on good years, they're going to target 30%. So, and keep in mind also that, traditional investors, they're going to invest, the investment cycle is about 10 years, right? So the first years of a fund, they're going to invest, and the year 5 to 10, they're going to divest. Okay. So that means that they're going to hold your company as an investment asset, right, for about 5, 7, 8, maximum 10 years. And so the goal for them is to earn 20% per year every year in terms of return on their investment, having invested in you over a period of 5 to 10 years. Right? Essentially, this compounded means that they need to offer a really big return to their own investors. That coupled with second information, which is the distribution of returns per company. Most companies they invest in, even if they're really good VC, really good at spotting the best startups, they will still always have a lot of startups which are going to give 0 to 1x in terms of return. Right? So typically, like 70% are going to give 0 to 1x in terms of return. 20% are going to give, between 2 to 5, and maybe about a few percent are going to give them 10x, and maybe 1% or less are going to give them 100x. This profile, this distribution is going to depend on the stage, on the geography, on a lot of different factors. But essentially, you have that distribution, right? That the higher the multiplier on the investment that they make, right? The lower the percentage of startups that are going to give them this return. But what it tells you, right, long story short, is that if traditional investors invest in you, they need to believe that they can get at least a 10x return within 5 to 10 years, right? That the valuation they're going to invest in, in your venture will be multiplied by 10 over the next 5 to 10 years. Okay, so that's the criteria, the basic criteria for your venture to be interesting to traditional investors. Right, so it's a long explanation, but hopefully you understand. Right, so first, traditional investors or impact investors, if you think you can give them this financial return, then traditional investors are possibly okay. Okay, if you can't, either your impact return only, or you mix of financial return and impact return, but your financial return cannot be that high. There's no way you can give like a 10x within 5 to 10 years. Then you only need to reach out to impact investors. Okay. And then you look into, right, so what will impact investors require, right? They want to see impact, right? So impact slide is going to be really, really important, right? So your theory of change, et cetera, right, is going to be really key. But, even if you reach out to impact investors, your pitch deck is very, very, very similar. Right? You still need to explain, what's the problem you address. I need to show that it's big, right? That you need to show how your solution addresses that problem. You need to show the market is still big enough, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Okay. You can show like your competitors. You can show, of course, the team, your accomplishments, your roadmap from now on, your ask. Okay. Did I answer? Is it good? Yeah, Raspberry.
Yes. Okay. We are thinking about that right now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I had to answer like generally because I don't know yet the specifics. Feel free to ask a lot of questions. This is a really good one to your mentors as well. And if needed, you can also ask us. Right?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, we got a lot more questions. Excellent. Okay, how to structure the pitch when our Blue Innovation is a small project relative to the ongoing company businesses. Okay, so it's a bit general. I would need to see. Okay, actually, that gives me the opportunity to talk about this. So I'm gonna show you this document, and I'm gonna put the link into the chat as well. Okay, so this is complementary information to the session you had on Wednesday, right? This does not replace what you were taught on Wednesday, but I thought this could be interesting for you. So it's a guide that we often use on how to create a great pitch deck. So again, I don't want to, how to say, overlap, with what was discussed on Wednesday. But if you still have questions on what you should talk about in your pitch deck, then that's a good typical flow that investors are going to expect, right? A quick introduction slide. Typically, you start with a problem. What's the problem you address? Again, right? And you will see that in the rest of the slides over here, one, we're going to have like brief explanations, right? So the problem slide needs to mention the key pain points that are addressed. And you need to show that these problems are really painful, right? If the problems are too small, then your company does not really address big enough project for big enough problem for which there's going to be demand, right? So it's not going to work out, right? So identify the key problems, and then you're going to see the slides that follow are going to be example of past startups that went through our accelerators that did a really good job at showing. So it's essentially good examples of this kind of slide, right, done by other startups. Okay, so that to give you ideas on how you can structure this slide, for example. Then quite often you have right after the problem, the solution, right? How do you address that problem? Right? Here again, you're going to see some information about what's the key info that you need to put into that slide, right? So just a few bullet points, not too much text, right? Just typically could just be like a few action verbs, right? Exchange, send, and spend, that's the solution by Revolut. Was that Revolut? Yeah, I think so. And then you can see examples of other startups. How did they structure that? Okay, so then you go to market slides, then competition. You talk about your revenue model, right? Your unit economics, maybe. Then your financials, your progress, your traction, your impact, right? So I think it's going to be relevant to all of you, but if you're talking only to impact investors, it's going to be one of the most important slides, right? Then you talk about your go-to-market strategy, your roadmap. I would also mention before that your accomplishments, right? The traction you've got, your accomplishment. Right? And finally, your team slide and your ask slide. Okay, so the link is here in the chat. It can be a really good resource, right, to help you see good examples of how did other impact startups present. And to give you like the traditional list of slides that investors expect. Okay, and that's valid. That's valid for the pitching event, right? That's a really good format for the pitching event, and that's a really good format for impact investors and traditional investors alike, right? Again, the key difference being that impact investors, your impact slide needs to be really strong, right? You can also have a few more slides on your impact return. Okay. Side point, will any philanthropic donor-based groups be among those present as well as investors? Yes. Would it be useful to maybe check how many of us are at scale to be able to provide detailed data? This would then help here to differentiate the type of investor. Okay. Okay, good point about angel investors. It's still, so this slideshow is still very relevant, and these assignments, sorry, wrong presentation, sorry. Okay. And this is still very relevant, right? Even if it's for angel investors, right? You still need to think about what you're going to ask them, your outreach message, CRM, etc. Right. So this is still relevant to angels. I talked about VCs as an example, right? So what I said about the 10x return is essentially for VCs. quick note, the key difference between angels and VCs is that angels are not professional investors. They are not managing other people's money, they're managing their own money. Some can still be very professional in the way they choose their investments, but most of them are not. Most of them are going to invest based on their intuition, based on their relationships, maybe also based on the groups that they belong to. Right? So the approach is slightly different, but still, so if you only target angel investors and not at all VCs, because you're not at this stage yet, then your answers to these questions is going to be a bit different. But you still need to ask yourself all of them. Okay, CRM template. Okay, CRM template. I think it's very typical, but essentially, right, the key columns are going to be what is the name of that person, the company, they belong to, maybe their LinkedIn and their email if you can find it, or at least like how to apply, maybe you need to apply through a website, right? So then you have like your call to action, right, for them. Either you contact them by email or by LinkedIn or through their website. Maybe some key information about their thesis, right? So just to, do they match who you are? Do they invest in your geography, in your sector, at your stage, your theme, right? All of that. Okay. What else? You can have what is the last action that you did with them, right? I like to have in my CRMs, I like to write, okay, did I contact them? Yes. Did I send them the first message? Yes. The second message? Yes. The third? Not yet. Did I have a call with them yet? Yes. And then a column next step. Right? Your next step is going to be probably the most important, right? What's next? Maybe it's to arrange for a call. Maybe it's to send them a follow-up message. Maybe it's to send them a pitch deck, etc., etc. Right? So be clear on your next step for them. Right? Other relevant information, notes about them. If you've had a call already, if you had some exchanges, right? So some key feedback from them, or the questions they ask, or like additional information, right, regarding them. What else are you going to need in your CRM? Feel free also to add in the chat, if you have any ideas.
Maybe the date of which action took place,
Absolutely.
like when did you send the first message, when did you send the follow-up, etc.
Yeah, a good one. Yeah. Let me see if I have. So essentially, it's very traditional sales CRM, right? But you probably already have some. Maybe some of you have this kind of. If you have different people in your company, who is the point of contact on your side, right? Maybe it's better. Maybe they've been introduced by someone else, or maybe one of you in your team, knows them. They should be the one reaching out to them. So point of contact, PIC. Right, person in charge, PIC, is also like a column that I like to have. Their website, right? So if you're looking, so a lot of investors are going to be local investors, but also a lot of them are going to be regional, and some are so global, right? So additional information such as the country they're from, right? The sectors they invest in, right? So information about the thesis, what's their country, what's their thesis, sectors, theme, what's their stage, right? What is maybe the amount that they invest, right? Maybe they already, give you on their website the range that they invest. Maybe it's between 100K to 200K, so it's better not to ask for 500, for example. Right? So information that are going to also impact your outreach message. Yes, status, we talked about it. Okay, all right, that's the key. Okay? And feel free to add additional. Let me see also on another list I have, if I have more ideas for columns. Type, right? Type of investor could be interesting. Are they impact investor? Are they a VC? Are they PE, right? PE is probably not relevant to you. Or are they an angel investor? Maybe the way you source them. Yes, okay, let's talk a little bit about customer acquisition channels. Okay, so whenever you look for customers, most of you, need this kind of sales operations and think about, what channels give you the best customers. And then you can compare your acquisition channels, right? Not all acquisition channels are going to be the best. You can consider this platform we're going to give you as an acquisition channel, right? And if so, all are going to be the same. But in real life, outside of this program, you will find some investors through LinkedIn. You will find some through maybe angel groups, business angel networks. Maybe you will find some others through introductions. So it's good to write what channel did you use to find them. Maybe you bought a list of investors, which I do not recommend in general, but anyway, there's so many different ways, right, to acquire, right? So what is really good in noting what channel you use to find someone, whether it's an investor or potential customer, is that then you can compare the efficiency of each channel. And that helps you improve your operations. Maybe that helps you for a future fundraising campaign. Maybe that helps you to be more efficient right now as well. Okay. All right. Yeah, type of capital they provide, right? Maybe do they offer debt, equity? Do they just offer corporate partnerships? Do they offer blended? Right. So all of that also is interesting information, right? So you can have a column for that, for the type of capital or the type of support they can offer. Okay. Yeah. All right. I think that's already quite a lot. Okay. Let's stop here. There are a lot of questions. That's fantastic. Okay. And in the end, it was a few minutes of slides and most of that's really good. Okay, where was I? Same template. Okay. Any suggestion for us to consider who will be a good match with our company? Some concerns that will help us to spend time on the right ones. Yeah. So again, essentially, it's the thesis. The thesis needs to match. Thesis is 3 things: geography, sector/theme, and stage. Right. So over here, the 3. Right. So make sure that they fit. You fit their thesis, right? Their geography, sector, theme, and stage, right? A 4th one is, of course, if you can only raise funds from impact investors, right? Again, because you cannot provide a 10x in terms of financial return over a period of 5 to 10 years, then, that's going to be a 4th one, right? So impact or traditional investors, right? These are going to be the key criteria for you to know whether you're a good match or not. You could also add, the amount of that they invest compared to the amount that you're raising, but it's a lesser. Then you have like secondary criteria, right? But these are the top 3 ones, and you add this one, so the top 4 ones. Okay. All right. Nick says, okay, impact investors will be your target. All right. Very good. Will there be representative from donors and other? I think did we answer that? Yes, there will be. Yeah. Okay. And I see Terry. Okay, yes, and I saw your hand raised for a while now. Yeah, so your question, should we identify market size following ABIC project to be able to scale? Otherwise, the fundraising might be different. I'm not sure to understand your question. Do you mind explaining a little bit? You're muted. Are you still muted? Perfect.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay. So, Student, we provide eco-friendly wastewater treatment solution by we addressing a lot of coastal areas, sanitation, challenging environment, and in terms of the IBIC project, we can identify basically market size on the Cambodia itself, but also at sea. But other challenging environment based on the previous provider recently, we also have a lot in project at market side, the whole Cambodia, but not just coastal. Should we identify just coastal first to raising funds for this project, or maybe otherwise we can and identify the whole, and then because it will be affect on the fundraising different side and milestone that we have to implement so far. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Alright.
In your pitch deck, you can talk about the market size that you target over the foreseeable future. Right.
Yeah.
So if it's something that you target in 20 years, no, I mean, anyway, no one can see so far ahead. If it's something that you know you can't tackle soon, then maybe don't talk about it. But else, yeah, it should be about the market size of the market you're going to tap into over the next, again, an investor typically invests in you for, the next 5 to 10 years, right? Impact investors could be also like much longer. Angel investors, is going to really depend on them as well, right? So yes, the market size, the targeted market size over the next years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah.
Pleasure. Okay, and last 2 questions. How should I respond if an investor claims that my system was developed by someone else? Oh, that's a tough question that, founders hate, right? How can I explain my contribution and convince the investor to invest in my business? Okay, all right. I know I've been on that receiving end on that question so many times. How do you differentiate yourself from your competitors? Someone else did that, right? Isn't that too similar to that other company? You get like that kind of question quite often indeed. I know that the gut feeling when you're being asked that is annoying. I know as a founder, I've received that question so many times. Like, no, I'm different. I'm unique, right? I'm very different from the others. Okay, first, don't take it badly, right? If you were the only one doing that, it would be bad. And it's actually one of the worst red flags when a founder says, I have no competitors, right? It's totally okay. I know that as a founder, you want to feel completely unique and you want to feel like no one else is doing what you're doing. But if you say in one form or the other that you don't have any competitors, it's going to be a big red flag. Why? Because there are 2 main reasons why you may have 0 competitors. One is you just didn't find them. So you have competitors and you didn't find them. So that means that you didn't really do a good market research. Or there are really no competitors. And honestly, humans have done pretty much everything, in the past in terms of innovation. So if there's really no company that exists that still survives, that does something similar to what you're doing, then it's also probably that it just doesn't work. That people tried it and failed because it just doesn't work. In any case, never say that because it's a really big red flag for investors to say have no competitors. Worst case scenario, it doesn't mean that you're copycat, right? But just talk about your close competitors, maybe your alternatives. Who is working in an adjacent sector, maybe, is doing the same in a different geography, for example. Okay, every company is different, right? So then the goal, what they want to know from you is how do you differentiate yourself from these competitors, right? So number 1, don't say you have no competitors, right? Identify them, plot them out, right? There are a few typical slides in order to present, right, your competitors. Again, you can refer to that. Let me see if I can find it quickly. All right, over here, right? So typically to show your differentiation, you have like 3 key frameworks. One is this, it's extremely common. You just plot 2 values, right? So here is the use cases, and the other one is difficulty versus ease of use, right? That's the deck of Revolut, right? And that's the most common probably. Second most common is going to be this, right? Where you just this or that, right? It's you have the list of competitors, in columns, right? So Revolut, WeSwap, World Remit, right? And you show that you have more features than the others, right? You have more values than the others that are interesting to you. Right? So this is Dropbox, this is Revolut. Right? Here you show only on 2 how do you say, criteria, like how you differentiate yourself. Here you show like how you differentiate yourself by having more features or more values. Okay. This is a little bit similar, right? This is a different way to represent that actually. So this is the same. So, right. So this is the best way to represent. The third that I really like, it's a little bit more complex, is the Blue Ocean strategy. It's a fantastic framework, but a lot of investors are not really familiar with that. So the Blue Ocean strategy canvas. Okay. Right. So again, I don't recommend it for everyone because not all investors know about it, but it's such a fantastic way to represent how you differentiate yourself from your competitors, right? Essentially, you're going to be the blue curve, right? Ideally, you're in a blue ocean, and your competitors are going to be the red curve, and you show essentially that, you know, what they focus on, what they do well over here, you reduce it, you eliminate and reduce some values, some aspects, and that frees resources for you to invest into so ERC, it's eliminate, reduce, create, and I forgot the fourth. Anyway, it's to boost, right? Right. So some you're gonna increase, and some you're gonna create complete new values that your competitors do not have. Okay. Again, it's a bit advanced, but it's a fantastic way. Maybe you can have it in your annex. All right. Okay, that's how to answer the question on how do you differentiate yourself. Right. Go to this slide and look also at the examples from other startups. Right. So this is the typical mapping, and this is the second most used framework where you just have like a grid of features and comparing yourself to your competitors. Okay. All right. So how should I answer when the claim has been developed? Yeah, it's been done, right? Nothing is completely brand new, but this is how we do things differently. This or Blue Ocean strategy canvas are going to be the best. Is receiving grant categorized as fundraising? Yes, at least for us, yes, absolutely. Okay. And the last question, is the investor interested in awardees only? How about the partners? Well, okay. So the question is, how about the partners and I guess also organizers in ABIC in this program? Essentially, they are facilitators, they are organizers, they are helping you. You can reach out to some of them. Absolutely, yeah. But you're going to have like much better chances, much better scale, right, through the hundreds of investors identified. But yeah, you can also try your luck. Yeah. All right. Okay, fantastic. All right. And that's pretty much exactly 1 hour. Okay, I thought it would last 15 minutes. I was afraid it was a bit too short for you to disturb you on a Friday evening. You all had fantastic questions. It was very interactive. I really love that. So thank you so much for your energy and the quality questions. It was really a pleasure. I look forward to the next session we have together. Once again, there are 2 assignments, next steps for you. Fill in the survey and think about your fundraising strategy. For the first one, the link was given in the chat. For the second one, it will be given to you soon. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, well done. I'm really excited to be joining this program with you all, and I hope to see you soon in February. And have a fantastic weekend. See you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.